Yo, so as we do, we start things off with pack a lunch. Um, yeah, we had a few fights go the distance. You know what I mean? This wasn't like Paris. You know, we had what, 3, 4, 5 fights went the distance in the end. You know, well, I mean 6, but yeah, we have 5 in this segment, and some of those were good. Some were a little, you know, we got asterisks on one of them, obviously. You know, it all started off with second fight of the night, I believe. It's the ladies' bantamweight clash. Yeah, it was the second fight of the night, right? We had Alice Pereira against Montserrat Rendon. And there was a lot of talk coming into this, right? Because, you know, Pereira, youngest female fighter on the roster, you know, just 19, got the contract just a few days before Christmas, you know what I mean? And she, when you see her fights outside of the UFC, like, she is good, really frigging good, man, you know? So this was like, oh, god damn, this is gonna be good. This is gonna be good, right? It's funny because Pereira's, you know, her nickname is Golden Girl. With this performance, it should be Wooden Girl, right? I don't think it gets a bronze, not a silver. Like, this was wood. This was crazy. And Montserrat Rendon, she did not do a lot either, right? This was really, it was, it wasn't quite as bad because there were shots thrown and everything, but it was like that Francis Ngannou, Derek Lewis fight from back in the day where nothing happened, you know? It was one of them. And I know we've had some similar fights since, but boy, it was so inactive. Like, see, Rendon got the call, I think only because she was the one coming forward. But she's coming forward and not really doing a lot with that. And Pereira, she did kind of, you know, she did oftentimes land kicks and shots, but going back. So there's never really anything on them. It was a weird, like, as I say, when you watch her outside of the UFC, her performances were like a 180 to what we got here, right? You see her sitting down on shots, right? Being aggressive. So it was very peculiar. I don't know if it was just, you know, debut nerves, right? If there's a lingering injury, who knows? But it was just, this was not a great fight at all, you know? And like, we were just coming off of the Ultimate Fighter fight, which was exciting, right? There's a lot going on in that one. So then we just get this, and it's just like, oh boy, come on, ladies. This is your, you know, it's when you're at the bottom of the card, when you're starting things off, it's not necessarily a bad thing. Like, there's not as much pressure on you. But the big thing is, if you're exciting, you know, and that's not always a stoppage, but if there's an exciting fight, then next time out, you get a higher slot on, you know, on the card. Sometimes you go from prelims to main card, right? You might get called to a pay-per-view. but you get something. But when you get performances like this, you know what I mean? Hey, you can open up a card, right? We'll throw you on a road to the UFC warm up or something like that, because hey, this was not it. And it's crazy because when you look at the first Noche UFC and then the second one in the Sphere, every Mexican fighter was so jazzed, right? And brought it. And, Montserrat, right? Just didn't really bring it. Right, there's always two sides to a story, and Alice was, obviously weak, but Montserrat, she didn't really do anything either. So, very, very disappointing. So our next fight was the flyweights. Right, we had Luis Gurule against Jesús Aguilar. Now, this fight, people, this was far from disappointing. These gentlemen brought everything. Oh man, this was a lot of fun. This was a fun fight, right? Aguilar, man, he just came out hot. Really took it to Gurule. Landing combinations, a lot of kicks, right? I think a front kick from Gurule did hurt Aguilar in the second. But he was able to deal with that. And, he gets a takedown. Man, he was just on it. Combinations. It was just all of this, and he ends the fight with just this big flurry, right? This big flurry. So if any of the judges were in a doubt, right, it was just like, okay, that's it. He gets the round, That was the performance, right? Like when a fight goes the distance and you're looking for fun, some engagement, just all of that. Right, this is the fight, right? These are the kind of fights that just grab your attention, So, if Rendon and Pereira, they need to watch this kind of fight, right? And be like, oh yeah, this is what we should have done, because it's about keeping safe, and Aguilar and Gurule both show good footwork and movement, so you don't, you can engage, but you don't have to be reckless. I mean, Aguilar and Gurule were kind of reckless at times, but they were both trying to finish. They were both trying to, leave their mark, and Aguilar, definitely did, and comes away with the big win. It was a unanimous decision. I think one judge gave him all 3 rounds. The other 2 gave it 29-28. Okay, so we then jump to our second and last women's fight of the night. It's a strawweight, right? Amanda Lemos against Tatiana Suarez. And I think Tatiana did her thing, essentially, right? I never thought that she was going to really be crippled by the loss to Wiley, I think mainly because Suarez was a wrestler, right? And she lost fights as a wrestler. I mean, not many, right? She was great. Didn't lose many, but she would have lost fights. And, that teaches you to be used to all of that. She also had the disappointment of not being able to go to the Olympics because of the cancer and everything. So she's kind of dealt with all of these things. So I feel you knew she was going to come back and come back okay. And against Lemos, yeah, you know, her stand-up, as I thought in the preview, was improved. It wasn't incredible, right? It wasn't incredible, but it had improved. But it's all about, you know, that pressure and getting takedowns and all of this thing. Like, she does need sometimes better entries for those takedowns, but you know, she does do that thing of switching up, right? Going for a double, then move, you know, changing to a single, and then, you know, taking away your balance, right? She's not just a double doesn't work, right? So she is all about the second, third effort of a takedown, but she can work on better entries. But she was clearly in charge of the fight until the last round, right? And only until the point where she gets, you know, rocked a little. I mean, sometimes when she does get rocked, it is very obvious. So she might want to work on that, right? Because I think you can be rocked, right? There's degrees of, you know, so if you're basically, you know, you've been hit so hard, you have no clue what the fuck is going on and you're all over the place, there's that. But sometimes people get hit slightly. They've still got their faculties, but they kind of act like they have nothing. You know what I mean? And so it just looks bad. It looks bad to the judges that, you know, you're in worse condition than you actually are. You know, and oftentimes she will kind of run away, right? And again, obviously, you don't want to stay in the pocket, right? But there's moving where it doesn't look as bad, you know what I mean? But she dealt with it and, you know, walked away with the win. And, you know, Lemos, she's definitely not the same as when she first came into the UFC, but it's still a good win, right? But she's got a win over Mackenzie Dern, who is challenging for the belt, right? So Lemos still, there's a lot of credibility with Lemos. So this is a good win for Suarez. She got 29-28 on all three judges, you know? So, yeah, there we go. So then we jump to our literally the next fight, the lightweights, right? Is Claudio Puelles against Joaquim Silva. And this was a back and forth fight. This was a decent one, you know. I think Puelles, he was doing a good job, right? Gets a takedown. He's a lot of control. You know, he's working a lot of combos. I think the problem was, I think he worked a lot in the first round to get the takedown. So I think he was a little bit tired going into the second round, right? So I think there was that. But even, you know, in the second round, he's not kind of blown away or anything. And I think he did hurt Gurule in the Silva, in the second. But I thought it was all down to the third, right? And I thought Puelles did a really good job in the third round. It's the end of the fight that really did it. Because, and this is the thing, right? He got rocked. And it didn't look great. The body language, all of this did not look great. You know what I mean? For the judges. And that's what I was saying about Suarez. You know, if it doesn't look good, then ain't the judges will automatically go, oh, that's the biggest moment. Okay, so the round goes to the other person. And I think that was it, right? If, you know, the aesthetics of the end of that round were better, I think Puelles takes it, right? Because I think he'd done a lot up to that point. I think he'd done enough up to that point to win that round. But it was, it was just the end of the round. And so Silva gets the nod. It was a split decision. All right, so it was 29-28 on 2. And Puelles gets 29-28 on 1. So yes, that was that fight. And then on the main card, we've got Gastelum against Stoltzfus, right? Which meant to be a middleweight, ends up being a catch weight at 191 pounds, which is insane. And you then wonder how much was Gastelum in there, you know? Because he looked so much bigger than Stoltzfus. It was crazy. And it's there is so much on this because Gastelum was doing decent work, right? Look, we know Gastelum is a good fighter. There's no question about that. But Stoltzfus was good too. And Stoltzfus, you know what I mean? He landed some big shots. Some really big shots. Now, Gastelum does have a good chin, right? The Adesanya fight clearly demonstrates that. But here's the big thing, right? As you get older, your chin does start to go. That's a big thing. I mean, Gastelum's only 33, which is insane, right? But I think the big thing is, was Gastelum able to take those shots because of his chin, or because he's so hydrated? He didn't have to do a big weight cut, you know? Because we know when you've had to make all of those cuts and stuff like that, it can affect your chin. But usually both fighters are in the same camp, you know? And I mean, depending on how good they are about their weight and, you know what I mean, like the cuts they have to do and all of that, it plays into it. But was Gastelum able to take some of those huge shots he was taking because he didn't cut weight? That's the big thing. And that's what we will never know, because Stoltzfus cracked him so many times, like really big shots. And it wasn't necessarily easy to take down, but when you're fighting someone basically in another weight class, you know, you're gonna struggle, right? It's like a flyweight trying to take a welterweight down. You know what I mean? That's the shit, right? So a Gastelum win here, you have to go. How much of this win is because you didn't bother making weight? You know what I mean? And then afterwards, he's all like, "Oh yeah, I'm sorry," and blah blah blah. And it's just like, if this was the first and only time, you can go, okay. But he does it so often. Like, what are we doing? Right? I think someone like Gastelum, you can't be putting weight on during, your gaps between fighting. Right? Like, you have to be so on point with your weight when you're not fighting. So there's not a big weight cut. You're basically walking around at your fight weight. That's what you need to do. And I think if you're not prepared to do that, you either, move to light heavyweight. Move to light heavyweight, because it's obvious middleweight is still an issue. So you have to do that or retire. Maybe go to boxing and fight at one of because the weight, there's more weight classes, so you have that, but you can't fight in the UFC anymore. I think that's the big thing. You have to make those decisions, because fine, you have to have a restricted diet for a few years, but you're not fighting forever. So yeah, suck it up for a few last years while you still fight. Then you can make weight. Or if you're not prepared to do it, then you don't fight anymore. I think those are the big things with Gastelum. I think there's got to be a big discussion now where he goes, because this was such a mess. And you just do not respect the win. You don't respect the win. But who knows? Who knows what is going to happen? I'd be definitely interested. I mean, if he got cut, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. If they said you have to move to light heavyweight, I wouldn't be surprised. Or if it's just like one more opportunity, and if he misses on that, he's done. There's a few different things that could happen. Let's just see. But people, that is Pac A